I didn't plan on attending my mom's birthday party that evening. Honestly, my original plan was to drop by for an hour, wish her a happy birthday, and then leave to meet some friends. But like so many things in my life, it didn't go as expected. It was a small gathering. My mom, Regina, had invited a few of her closest friends and coworkers. She had this ability to make any event feel special, even if it was just a regular dinner. We spent the evening chatting and laughing, but to be truthful, I wasn't really in the mood. It had been a rough week at work, and I was feeling a bit off. That's when I first met her. Vanessa. Vanessa was a colleague of my mom's. She was in her early 40s, though you wouldn't know it by looking at her. She had this vibrant energy that made her seem much younger. I first noticed her when she walked into the kitchen. My initial thought was that she was beautiful, but I quickly dismissed it. She was just another one of my mom's friends. Nothing special. But as the evening went on, I couldn't help but observe how effortlessly she blended into the conversation. She wasn't the loudest person in the room, but there was a quiet confidence about her. She was witty, intelligent, and even though she'd known my mom for years, it felt like she was the newest addition to the group, adding an intriguing dynamic. For some reason, I found myself drawn to her. She seemed different from the usual people my mom hung around with. Maybe it was the way she carried herself or how she genuinely listened when others spoke. The night continued with my mom talking to some old friends while I mostly sipped my drink, trying to avoid any awkward interactions. Then, out of the blue, Vanessa and I found ourselves standing near the snacks. "So Kyle," she said, catching me off guard, "what do you do for work?" My mom never really talks about it. I chuckled. "Oh, I work in IT. Nothing too exciting, just fixing bugs and making sure everything runs smoothly. Not exactly thrilling stuff." Vanessa smiled, her eyes lighting up. "Sounds like you're good at it, though. It's important work, even if people don't always notice." I shrugged, unsure how to respond. It was a casual exchange, but for some reason, it felt like there was a deeper connection happening. She wasn't just asking the usual small talk questions. We ended up talking for much longer than I had planned. She had a way of making conversation flow naturally without the pressure to keep things going. We talked about our jobs, life in general, and somehow the conversation turned to relationships. She casually mentioned she'd been single for a while. "Honestly," she laughed, "I've had my fair share of bad relationships, so I'm just taking a break. Maybe I'll meet someone eventually, but who knows?" I remember thinking, how is someone like her still single? She was attractive, smart, and outgoing. It didn't make sense, but I didn't bring it up. I just nodded, not wanting to say anything awkward. Later on, my mom had everyone exchange phone numbers to stay in touch, and for some reason, I ended up exchanging numbers with Vanessa too. It felt a little odd at first, but it seemed like a harmless, casual gesture. The night ended, and everyone started saying their goodbyes. I was about to leave when my mom pulled me aside. "You know, Vanessa doesn't come around here often, but I think she'd like it if you kept in touch with her," she said with a wink. I didn't think much of it at the time. It seemed like just another passing comment. But when I left the party, I couldn't shake the feeling that something about that evening had been different. Something had clicked, though I didn't yet know what it was. A few days passed since the party. At first, I didn't think much about my conversation with Vanessa. It was just a friendly chat, right? We were two people talking at a party. Nothing special. But the more I reflected, the more I realized something had changed. It wasn't just small talk. It felt like there was a connection, something unspoken. I wasn't sure how to interpret it, so I pushed the thought away, convincing myself it was nothing. I was wrong. One evening, after finishing some work, I was scrolling through my phone to pass the time. That's when I saw it. A message from an unknown number. My heart skipped a beat as I immediately recognized it. Vanessa. "Hey Kyle, hope you're doing well. Just wanted to send you a quick photo I took yesterday. Thought you might like it." I stared at the message for a moment, unsure of how to respond. A photo? I thought. Why would she be sending me a photo? We had exchanged numbers at the party, but I wasn't expecting her to reach out so soon. I opened the message, half curious, half cautious, and there it was. A picture of her. She was sitting in a cozy cafe, the kind of place with soft, warm lighting and vintage chairs. She was holding a coffee cup, her eyes slightly angled down as if lost in thought. There was no formal pose, no forced smile, just a candid shot. And yet, there was something captivating about it. Her hair fell naturally around her shoulders, and there was a subtle, almost knowing smile on her lips. At first, I wasn't sure what to make of it. It was just a picture, right? Nothing to overthink. But as I studied it again, something struck me. There was something deeper in her expression. It wasn't just friendly. It felt like she was looking at me, even though it was only a photo. I shook my head, trying to focus. Okay, it's just a friendly photo, I reminded myself. She's just being nice. But my thoughts were racing, and I couldn't help but wonder why she sent it to me. I quickly typed a response, trying to keep it casual. Wow, great picture. Thanks for sharing. You look awesome. Simple, straightforward. No need to make things complicated. I put my phone down, thinking that would be the end of it. But not even a minute later, my phone buzzed again. I picked it up and saw her reply. Glad you think so. I wanted to send it because you seem like someone who appreciates the little things. I'm kind of proud of how it turned out. Her message was light and easygoing, but the way she phrased it, you seem like someone who appreciates the little things, made me feel like she was saying more than she was letting on. I stared at the message, trying to process it. Was this just about the photo, or was there something deeper? Maybe she was just being kind, or maybe she hadn't thought much of it. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was a reason behind it. Over the next few days, we continued texting each other. At first, it was just casual conversations, simple check-ins, talking about work and life. But somehow, it didn't feel as trivial as most of the conversations I had. It felt easier, more comfortable. We shared our favorite books, music, and the frustrations of being in our 30s. She opened up more each time, and I found myself doing the same. Then, out of the blue, she sent another message that completely caught me off guard. Hey, Kyle. I was thinking maybe we could grab a drink sometime. Just the two of us. My heart skipped a beat. I wasn't sure how to respond. We'd been texting for a while, but the idea of actually meeting up, just the two of us, felt different. I was nervous. Was this just a casual hangout, or was there something more behind it? I wasn't sure. Part of me wanted to say yes without hesitation. She was smart, funny, and clearly someone who could hold a conversation without it being awkward. But another part of me hesitated, remembering that she was my mom's friend. That made it complicated. I texted back after a minute of thinking. Sure, that sounds great. Let me know when you're free. And with that, I knew things were about to change. We had crossed a line. Small, but enough to make everything feel uncertain. I didn't know where this would lead, but something told me that this was the start of something I wasn't prepared for. Looking back, I realized that the photo was the turning point. It wasn't just a snapshot. It was a signal. I had to look twice because I knew my life was about to take a direction I hadn't expected. The days passed with strange anticipation building up after that text from Vanessa. I couldn't stop thinking about our upcoming meetup. It felt like something had shifted between us, an unspoken understanding that lingered beneath the surface. I tried to act normal, to carry on with my daily routine, but every time I picked up my phone, I wondered if there would be another message from her. The day we were supposed to meet finally arrived. It wasn't a grand plan, just a simple drink at a bar near where I lived. A casual thing, but the tension in the air made it feel much bigger. I remember being nervous that evening, trying to pick the right outfit. Something that would make me look relaxed but still put together. I didn't want to look like I was trying too hard, but I also didn't want to seem underdressed. I settled on a dark shirt and jeans, my usual go-to. I wanted to feel confident, but the nerves were getting to me. When I walked into the bar, Vanessa was already there. She was sitting at a table by the window, her back to the door, sipping on a drink. She looked just like she did in the photo, relaxed, natural, but in person there was something even more striking about her. When she saw me, her smile made the nerves in my chest settle just a little. Hey, Kyle, she said, standing up and giving me a warm hug. I'm so glad you could make it. I smiled back, trying to shake off the butterflies. Yeah, of course. I'm glad we finally got the chance to do this. We sat down, ordered our drinks, and for the first few minutes, the conversation was light. Work, life, the usual stuff. But there was something different in the air. The energy between us wasn't just friendly. It was more like we were both trying to figure out what was happening between us. Every time our eyes met, there was an unspoken understanding. We both knew this wasn't just a casual drink anymore. Something had shifted since those first conversations. As the evening went on, the conversation deepened. Vanessa shared more about her life, how she'd been single for a while, how her previous relationships hadn't worked out, and how she'd come to terms with being alone. I listened, genuinely interested, but I also noticed how her eyes would flicker toward me every now and then. It wasn't just the way she was talking, it was the way she was looking at me. I found myself doing the same. There was something magnetic about her. She wasn't just beautiful. She was intelligent, funny, and easy to talk to. Every time we laughed together, I felt a spark I couldn't ignore. But I had to remind myself that she was my mom's friend. This was already crossing a line. At some point, I leaned back in my chair, trying to give myself space to think. Vanessa noticed, her brow furrowing slightly. "Everything okay?" she asked, her voice soft. "Yeah," I said quickly, trying to hide my thoughts. "Just thinking. I guess it's a little surreal, you know? Hanging out with you like this, just the two of us." She smiled knowingly. "I get it. It's a bit weird, but I'm glad we're doing this. I've been wanting to get to know you better. You're different from most people I know." I didn't know how to respond. Different? I wondered what she meant by that. But before I could speak, she continued. "I don't know, Kyle. There's just something about you. Something I can't quite put my finger on, but it's there. You're easy to talk to, and I like that." My heart raced a little at her words. Is she flirting with me? I couldn't tell, but the more she spoke, the more I realized that this wasn't just a friendly conversation anymore. She was putting herself out there in a way that I didn't expect, and it made me question everything I thought I knew about this situation. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. "I feel the same way. I didn't expect to have such a good time with you tonight. I hadn't expected to connect with her like this. But now that we were here, I couldn't deny the chemistry between us." There was a moment of silence, and for a second, I thought about how far things had come. This wasn't just a friendly drink. There was something more happening. Something. I wasn't ready for what happened next. Vanessa leaned in a little closer, her eyes gentle yet piercing. "You know, Kyle," she began, her voice soft but filled with emotion. "I wasn't sure how to bring this up, but I've been thinking a lot about us lately. I'm wondering if this—" She paused, locking eyes with me. "Could be more than just friendship." My heart raced, and for the first time that night, I truly felt the gravity of the situation. I didn't know how to respond. Was this really happening? Was she saying what I thought she was saying? Before I could find the words, she gently placed her hand on mine. It was a small touch, but it sent a wave of warmth through me. "I like you, Kyle," she said quietly. "More than I expected to." Everything inside me told me this wasn't just a fleeting moment. It was real. In that instant, I knew whatever came next would change everything. I wanted to say something, but all I could do was look at her, trying to sort through the emotions swirling inside me. I needed to be careful. I needed to think this through. But deep down, I knew this was a turning point. This wasn't just a casual interaction anymore. We had crossed a line and there was no going back. The night after our conversation, I barely slept. I couldn't stop thinking about Vanessa's eyes, the way she had looked at me when she said she liked me. I kept replaying her words in my head. Not just what she'd said, but how she'd said it. So genuine, so sincere. But I couldn't ignore the complexity of the situation. Vanessa wasn't just anyone. She was my mom's friend. I had always respected her, always seen her as someone who was simply part of my mom's life. But now, I wasn't sure what I felt anymore. I'd worked hard to keep things professional with her, to avoid letting my emotions complicate the boundaries we had. Yet, sitting across from her that night, I could feel those boundaries blurring. Something was happening that I hadn't prepared for, and I didn't know whether to embrace it or step away. The next day, I found myself texting Vanessa. It wasn't a long message, just a simple, "Hey, I've been thinking about last night. Maybe we should talk more about this and figure out where we stand." After hitting send, I stared at my phone, my thumb hovering over the screen for what felt like forever. I knew that once she replied, nothing would ever be the same. About an hour later, my phone buzzed. Yeah, I've been thinking about it too. Let's meet up again. No pressure, just want to talk. Her casual tone was reassuring, but at the same time, it felt like we were both trying to pretend nothing had changed. But everything had changed, and I could feel the weight of it. We decided to meet the following evening at the same bar. I arrived first, hoping to clear my head and prepare for whatever was about to happen. I couldn't stop pacing, overthinking every detail. What to say, what to do, how to act. But deep down, I knew I couldn't avoid it any longer. When Vanessa arrived, she looked as stunning as ever. She was dressed casually, but there was something about her presence that made her stand out, as if she belonged in the spotlight. We exchanged a quick hug, and then she sat down. For a moment, there was silence between us. I could feel the tension, the awkwardness hanging in the air. But I also knew this moment was inevitable. It had to happen. She broke the silence first. Where do we go from here? Her voice was soft, but her question was direct. There was no avoiding it, no pretending we hadn't already crossed a line. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I don't know, I admitted. I didn't expect this. I didn't expect you to make me question everything I thought I knew. Vanessa's eyes softened and she leaned in a little closer, her gaze fixed on mine. I'm not trying to make things complicated, she said, but I can't ignore how I feel. And I don't think you can either. She was right. I couldn't ignore it. The attraction was real, and it wasn't just physical. There was something deeper, something that made me want to spend more time with her, to get to know her beyond the person I'd always seen her as. But at the same time, I had to face the reality of the situation. I get that, I said, running a hand through my hair. But I need to be honest with you. This is tricky. You're my mom's friend. I've always thought of you as someone I respect, but now things are different. I don't want to mess this up. Vanessa looked down for a moment, as if carefully considering my words. When she spoke again, her voice was calm but firm. I get it, I really do, she said. But I'm not asking for anything crazy, Kyle. I just want to see where this could go. We don't have to make any big decisions right now, but I think we owe it to ourselves to explore this, to see if there's something here. I stayed quiet for a while, processing everything she'd said. I could tell she wasn't pushing me or rushing anything, but at the same time, I could see how serious she was. She wanted this, and part of me wanted it too. I don't know how to feel, I finally said, feeling a little overwhelmed. But I'm willing to see where this goes. I think we need to be careful, though. We need to figure out how to handle this without hurting anyone. She nodded, understanding. Agreed. We'll take it slow, one step at a time. No rush. After that, the conversation shifted to lighter topics. We talked about work, hobbies, and random bits of small talk to keep things flowing. But there was a new layer to everything now. Every word felt loaded, as if we were dancing around something much bigger. As the night went on, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything had changed. What had started as a casual drink had turned into something far more significant. The question wasn't whether we could make this work. It was how we would handle the consequences when everything came to light. But for the first time, I felt ready to take that step, even though I wasn't sure where it would lead. In the days after Vanessa and I decided to explore what was happening between us, things felt strange. Not in a bad way, but in a way that made my heart race every time I saw her. We spent more time together, meeting at cafes, texting during the day, and stealing moments whenever we could. The chemistry between us was undeniable, but in the back of my mind, the reality of what we were doing loomed like a dark cloud. We were both aware of the risks, especially the consequences if my mom ever found out. I couldn't stop thinking about how this would affect everything. How would I look her in the eye again, knowing what I'd done? What would happen if she found out that her closest friend, someone she'd trusted for years, was now the woman I was falling for? But that was a problem for later. For now, I just wanted to enjoy the moments we had. Every time Vanessa smiled at me, every laugh we shared, it made me forget the consequences. at least for a little while. But like all secrets, this one couldn't stay hidden forever. It was a Saturday evening when everything came to a head. I was sitting at home trying to distract myself with a movie when my phone buzzed. The text was from Vanessa, and it was short, but it hit me like a ton of bricks. I think it's time we tell her. I stared at the message for a long time, my pulse quickening. We both knew this moment would come. The longer we kept this a secret, the harder it would be to hide. But I wasn't ready. I had no idea how to approach it, how to make my mom understand what was happening. Still, deep down, I knew Vanessa was right. We couldn't keep lying to ourselves. We couldn't pretend this wasn't real. I texted back, "Yeah, I think you're right, but I don't know how to even start." Vanessa's reply came quickly. "We'll figure it out together." That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing through all the possible scenarios, all the things my mom might say. I tried to convince myself that everything would be fine, but deep down, I knew there was no easy way to say this. The next day, I told Vanessa I was ready. We decided to meet at my mom's house. It was time to face the music. When I walked into the house, my mom was sitting in the living room, sipping her coffee. She looked up when she heard me come in, giving me her usual warm smile, but I could tell something was different. Maybe she noticed the tension in my posture or the way I was avoiding her eyes. Vanessa was already sitting next to her, and I could see the nervous energy in her as she glanced at me. "Mom," I began, my voice shaky. "There's something I need to tell you." She raised an eyebrow, setting her coffee cup down. "What's going on, Kyle? You look like you've seen a ghost." I took a deep breath. This isn't easy for me to say, but Vanessa and we've been seeing each other. The words hung in the air, and for a moment, everything went silent. My mom's expression didn't change at first, but I could see the shock in her eyes. She looked over at Vanessa and then back at me. The silence stretched on, suffocating. "Wait, what?" my mom said, her voice low, almost a whisper. "You and Vanessa?" I nodded, unable to look her in the eyes. "Yeah, I know it's complicated, but it's real. We've been spending time together, and we've developed feelings for each other." The tension in the room was thick, almost unbearable. My mom looked between us, as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Vanessa sat still, her hands clenched in her lap. "I didn't want to hurt you," I said quietly, "but I care about her, and I didn't know how to tell you." My mom took a long breath, looking down at the floor for what felt like forever. She didn't say anything. I couldn't tell if she was angry, hurt, or just confused. Finally, she spoke. "I don't know what to say, Kyle," she said slowly, her voice cracking a little. "I never expected this. I thought of Vanessa as just my friend, but now, I don't know. It's a lot to process." A knot tightened in my stomach. I hadn't expected it to be easy, but hearing my mom's pain was harder than I'd imagined. Vanessa finally spoke up, her voice gentle but firm. "Regina, I care about your son. This wasn't something either of us planned, but it's real. I hope you can understand that." My mom nodded, her expression still unreadable. "I'm not angry, Kyle. I need time to think. This is a lot for me." "I understand," I said. "Take all the time you need. I never meant to hurt you." We all sat there for a few moments, the silence hanging over us like a cloud. I wanted to say more, to explain, but I knew there was nothing more to say. My mom needed space. We all did. After a long, tense pause, my mom stood up and walked over to Vanessa. She placed a hand on her shoulder, looking at her with a softness I hadn't expected. "Look," my mom said, her voice steady. "I can't say I fully understand this, but I love my son, and I want him to be happy. If you make him happy, I'll try to support that. But I need time." Vanessa nodded. "I completely understand, and I promise I care for him deeply." It wasn't perfect. It wasn't the resolution I'd hoped for, but it was a start. My mom was hurt, but she was willing to try, and that was all I could ask for. In the end, Vanessa and I stayed together. We took things slow, but with every passing day, the bond between us grew stronger. My mom and I never talked about it again directly, but I could tell she was coming to terms with it. As time went on, things began to settle. It wasn't easy, but nothing worth having ever is. And now I knew that what Vanessa and I shared was real. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. We had made it through the hardest part, and now we were ready to build something new together.